Hello, and welcome to UnKpopular Opinions, a safe space for fans of BTS and other K-pop groups to ask the tough question, what do I think of this? I'm your host, Ginger Nuna, and today I'm joined once again by my friend Sam, and we are going to recap our experience with the BTS Permission to Dance on Stage LA concert tour. How's it going, Sam?
It's going pretty good.
Well, I'm glad that you are here. And I figure the best way to do this is kind of we go in chronological order, just from beginning to end. So the first thing is the ticket buying experience. Listeners, I got real lucky. Sam did the ticket buying for both of us. So if you can get yourself a Sam, I would say that's the first thing you need to do to get some good tickets. But Sam, we got some really good tickets. Can you talk about, were there any tips or tricks that you used to get those tickets?
I think that it was part luck of the draw and part having really good internet. So when you buy tickets for Ticketmaster, for those of you who don't know, you show up about an hour before sales opens and you sit in a digital waiting room. And once the tickets open, I believe it was at 3:00 for the Permission to Dance tickets, then you are put in a queue and you're told 1,000 people are in front of you or 15,000 people are in front of you. We got really lucky. I was only had 1,000 people in front of me for my browser for the December 1st concert. And to hedge our bets, I had also opened a browser for the December 2nd concert, and there were even fewer people ahead of me then. I would recommend getting the best internet you can. I got an Ethernet cable and plugged my laptop directly into my modem, and I feel like we had so few glitches. We didn't crash. The site didn't time out. Having really good internet was key factor.
I think we also really got lucky because we got our tickets on Army membership presale day. Mm-hmm. And we are both very aware that there are Map of the Soul ticket holders who just got railed in the worst, least consensual way possible by Ticketmaster.
Yeah.
And we just got really, really lucky. And Ticketmaster, you suck. Get your shit together. So you had two browsers open?
I had Google Chrome open because I'd heard that was the best browser to go with. And our first choice was December 1st because we felt like there would be the least amount of competition for...
Quotes around least amount of competition.
We felt like a Wednesday concert was a lot less in demand than the Saturday concert or the Sunday concert. And our intention was originally just to go to one show. But our budget after we bought silver soundcheck tickets for December 1st still allowed for us to go a second day. And so we got 200 level tickets for the final concert.
So we got really, really lucky
Mm-hmm.
is the long and the short of that. So there are some things you can do that will help improve your chances, but it really was just a lot of luck, right?
Yeah.
So that pretty much wraps up the ticket buying experience itself. And we got the tickets back it was October, right?
It was October 7th because it was the day after my mom's birthday. Because I will say that I think a very big part of the ticket buying experience was like the anxiety of not knowing whether we would get tickets. So if you're listening to that, to this podcast and you felt that, like, it was one of the most anxiety-inducing experiences I've had recently. And we're currently in the middle of a pandemic. So yeah, we got the tickets October 7th.
So Sam, actually, I want to, before we move on to the next section, play a voice message that I sent to you back in early October. And just because I think it's really funny. All right, here we go.
Okay, I may or may not be literally crying right now because I am so incredibly disappointed that I will not get to see this concert. Like, what the fuck is wrong with me? I know I have PMS, but I'm just really sad.
And And as you can tell, listeners, it worked out for us for some insane reason. And by that insane reason, I really just mean Sam. Get yourself a Sam, but you can't have this one because this one is mine. So for us, we did have to fly down to the show. We could have driven, but flying down just made a lot more sense, both financially and time-wise, because we wanted to get the most out of our experience. I'm the one who ended up buying plane tickets. And what I would say for buying plane tickets, not just for this, but for anything in general, Kayak was such a great website. What Kayak does is it compares all of these other websites against each other and gives you the best price. And it was really easy to figure out which flight would be best and look at, okay, so if I want to leave at 6 a.m, which is what we ended up doing, by leaving on a 6 a.m. flight as opposed to an 8 a.m. flight, I saved us like $200. So I'm feeling pretty proud of myself about this. You rented our Airbnb. When we were trying to figure out where we were going to stay, people think about Los Angeles is just like, it's Los Angeles, but Los Angeles has tons of tiny, not tiny, cities around Los Angeles. Like, for instance, SoFi is actually in Inglewood. It's not in Los Angeles at all. So we were trying to figure out where is the best place to stay. And we ended up staying in Culver City. And the reason we chose that was because Culver City was really in close proximity to LAX and to SoFi. And I think that was a really good choice for us because after the concert, after being there all day long, we didn't want to have to spend 2 hours in the car trying to get home. Once we were able to get out of the parking lot, that was the part that took a long time. We were able to get home pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think it took about 30 minutes, and that's mostly because we were leaving a small area with thousands of other people. I think Culver City was a really great bet for SoFi Stadium, and I felt safe there. You just got to keep your wits about you wherever you are. So when it came to packing for the show, I am firmly I don't want to check my bag because I am cheap person. Oh, yeah.
So we ended up doing the whole, you get carry-on personal item. And I would say the thing that I messed up with the most was I didn't leave any space in my suitcase to buy anything. And that's such a rookie mistake. But it was a huge deal when I was trying to come back, figure out, well, now that I have procured an army bomb and all this other merch, where am I going to put it? So I would say my first really big tip, and this would be, I would say, going anywhere that you're going to sightsee or visit for fun, where you might buy stuff. Leave some space in your luggage. Leave more space than you think you would need. I packed too many clothes. I overestimated how much I would want to make choices about clothing when I got to LA. Yeah. And once I got there, I was like, no, I'm going to wear these outfits. Why did I bring these other ones? Was there anything packing wise where you feel like this is something I did that was brilliant? Or why did I do this? It was a huge hindrance.
I think I packed what I needed. I knew that I wanted to get a book or two down there, so I did. And I also knew we were going to hit up some K-pop stores, so I left a little room for the merch. I would say where I might have overpacked was the actual days of the concert, packing my clear bag.
Okay. So we should touch base a little bit later about what we put in our clear bags to see what we both would have removed and what we would have kept. Something I do feel really cool about, listeners, that I was really proud of myself. I was really struggling with my liquids for the airplane. So most of the travel size containers that you can buy at a store are about 3 ounces because the max size you can bring on an airplane is 3.4.
3.4.
And most of the time, you don't need 3 ounces of something. That is a huge waste of space. So So listeners, what I ended up doing was I bought a ton of 2-ounce hand sanitizer bottles. I emptied the hand sanitizer into a place where I needed hand sanitizer. So I had all of these 2-ounce bottles that were the perfect size for the stuff that I needed. So I would definitely suggest if 3 ounces is something that's way too big, take a look around. Is there something smaller that you can repurpose? I also got really lucky that I went to a hotel a few days before we went out. Did I want to use that hotel shampoo? No, I did not. Was I able to empty it out and put in my shampoo? Yes, I was. So I was able to bring all the liquids that I wanted. So that was something I felt pretty good about and I wanted to share with everyone. So we ended up flying down on Tuesday. Our first show was on Wednesday. And I keep going back and forth about, was that enough time? I think it was enough time in theory, especially for us. When you are considering when you need to leave for the concert, keep in mind, what would you do if your flight was canceled? Mm-hmm. We were in a position where if for some reason our flight was canceled, we could take a car and drive to Los Angeles. So really keep that in mind, especially right now with the pandemic where flights are getting canceled, and keep an eye out on which airlines are more likely to be canceled. They might be cheaper. Is it worth it in the long run? Another thing about going to a concert in LA is we rented a car, and I think that was the best choice for us. Mostly because we were staying in Culver City. So having an Uber take us between the venue and our Airbnb wouldn't have been that expensive, I think. I don't know how surge pricing works.
I think surge pricing could have made it expensive, but I think one of the biggest things was that when you get out of the venue, you were competing with everybody else for a ride share.
Yes. And I think the other thing that was beneficial was when you go to a concert, rarely is the venue right in the city. Mm-hmm. It happens every once in a while, like the venues in Seattle are in downtown Seattle. But in this case, where we consider this part of Los Angeles, it's actually in Inglewood. A lot of the things that you're going to want to do as a tourist aren't in the city where the event is being held. So it worked out really well for us to have a car, and we were able to go to Koreatown. We were able to drive through Beverly Hills and feel bad about ourselves. And
for a city like Chicago or New York that has a really great public transportation system, maybe you can forgo renting a car. But again, LA is not that city. And so another tip, research where you're going, figure out how the city is laid out, where you'd like to stay, what you'd like to see, and go from there.
I think that's a really good point. So on the day of the show, I think we were really lucky because we went to day 3. So we had the benefit of not only SoFi learning from a lot of their mistakes, but also people online being like, this is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. I think that we're really fortunate because if we had gone to a concert pre-pandemic, we would have had a very different experience than what we had. So for us, because it's post-pandemic and they're trying to really regulate things, we had floor seats, but they were actual seats. And we didn't have to worry about overcrowding or not having any personal space or having to camp out overnight. Like, I cannot believe what some army went through pre-pandemic. Shout out to you guys, because I don't think I would have been brave enough to do any of the stuff that was required to be able to see the concert from where we saw it. On both show days, we ended up doing a fair bit of waiting. And I think that is something that everyone gets warned about, but I still had a bit of confusion about the waiting, especially when it comes to food and drink. So this is something that I really want to clarify. And of course, everything we're talking about is pretty SoFi specific. But I imagine that once they start their world tour next year, because you know they're going to, that some of these things will be useful for other venues. So what I was confused about in terms of food and drink was, at what point was I not going to be allowed to have anything? And it is when you go through security. And most of the time, that's only going to be, I would say, up to an hour, 2 hours before. So I didn't pack enough water initially because I didn't realize, oh, I'm going to be able to drink all of this water because I'm still going to be in an area where I'm allowed to.
The best that you can do is go off of what it says on the website. I think one of the things you touched upon was SoFi's lack of organization for the first 2 concerts. It sounds like day 3 might have been stressful for non-soundcheck ticket holders, but we were lucky enough that by the 4th day, they had everything squared away. I think that it sounds like, from what I've read online, that different days or even different entry points had different rules. And so being flexible is probably in your best interests, because it could come down to the security person who's letting you through.
It's definitely worth it to get there early. You might spend a ton of time waiting, but it's better to spend that extra time waiting. When you do get there and you're getting ready to wait, make sure that you are prepared for whatever the weather is bringing your way. So for me, that meant I need to make sure I'm bringing sunscreen. In some other places, like I'm sure when they tour in Chicago.
Oh, yeah. Chicago was famous for having torrential downpours.
Yep. So you're going to have to pack according to where you are.
Yeah. I think that preparing for the weather, bringing backups, Ginger and I both run really hot. And so we weren't so worried about people who said that it was going to be cold at night. But just keeping an eye on the potential weather situations is a good idea. Another really great thing about showing up early is that if you don't want to talk to people, you don't have to. But if you do, everybody that we met was incredibly friendly. And you're all there to fangirl over, or fanboy over, BTS. And so if you're going alone, Ginger and I were lucky enough to go together, but you can easily make connections and you don't have to sit somewhere alone, quiet for hours.
It was great because you are in this place where, even though I don't love social situations, I don't like making new friends, this was just, at first I was really nervous about it. But when you think about it, this is an ideal place to meet people.
Someone. I think meeting people over the age of 30 is always interesting because you're told that you should have everything in place by then. And so there aren't a lot of great options for going out and making new friends. But we met so many cool people. We had a very big shared interest, and conversation really flowed from there. So definitely I would recommend, even if you're somebody who isn't keen to meet new people like Ginger and I, be open to it because you can meet some really fun individuals.
I think this is actually probably a good time to talk about, what did you bring in your clear plastic bag?
This is my number one tip, not just for going to a concert, but for wearing masks in general. I saw an army on TikTok say that they bought plastic, what do you call them? Inserts to keep their mask off of their mouth and nose.
It kind of almost looks like a muzzle.
Yes, it kind of looks like a Hannibal Lecter type thing. So Ginger and I used those, and they were honestly lifesavers, and I wish I had known about them before.
They were just so helpful because, of course, you're going to be wearing your mask all day, and you're probably used to that at this point, especially if you are working. That's something you're used to doing. But when you are yelling, or if you have any type of anxiety like I do, I didn't realize how much having the mask right in front of my face was a hindrance when I was having anxious times. Having my mask still protecting me, but held away from my mouth and nose, where I was able to breathe deeply, was such a relief. And I am so glad that you found these things.
Yes, that was probably the biggest game changer for the concerts and the thing I'd recommend the most. I also brought a power bank for my phone. I brought my vaccine card and my ID wallet. I brought my aforementioned 2 books, and then I brought a lot of stuff that I probably didn't need as much, like, I don't know. I guess I was under the impression that a million women would ask me for tampons, so I brought tampons. Another thing I had was my Army light stick.
You can call it an Army bomb. We're not on the airport anymore.
Yes. And so I will say we got ours at the concert, but if you bring your Army bomb, remember to bring batteries.
That reminds me, I need to take my batteries out.
I took mine out the other day. Yes. When you get home, take them out, because it would suck if they got corroded and ruined your Army bomb.
Because those aren't cheap.
Yes. Pairing it up with your, this is something I recommend. If you go to a concert, try pairing your Army bomb with your ticket before you enter the stadium. Once we got into SoFi, because there were thousands of people trying to use the internet, service was not great.
I felt like such a fool where it's like, this is why they have pairing stations. And I got really lucky because this really nice woman next to me, shout out to Alicia, who is an OG Army. She has liked them since debut. So that was really cool.
We met several people who have liked BTS since 2013.
There was Brittany who has liked them pre-debut. So shout out to Brittany also. We thoroughly enjoyed you and your narwhal onesie.
Yes.
But what I feel silly about was not pairing when we were outside. It would have made so much more sense. You have your ticket information. And the really cool part is your ticket information. I didn't quite understand how Army bombs worked. And I've seen videos, but it didn't really occur to me, like, pairing it to your specific seat is really important, because you and the person right next to you might actually be on different patterns for some of the light stuff. It was just really cool that they were able to do that.
I wonder, much as I do about the drones in the sky, like, who handles the Army bomb program? Because you don't want to fuck that up.
And we appreciate your hard work. In my purple plastic bag, well, I mean, it was clear plastic with purple piping. Lots of alliteration right there. I am most grateful that I brought earplugs. I have fairly sensitive ears, but also, maybe you know this, maybe you don't. If you injure yourself, your body is going to repair itself. You can't repair your hearing. Like, once you screw up your hearing, it's not going to get better. And I don't like putting things in my ears. I'm okay with AirPods, but normal earplugs, I could just never get comfortable. And I found these really cool earplugs. They are a clear plastic, almost kind of a gummy texture. I believe the brand is Max, MACS. And it was perfect because they aren't heavy duty earplugs where you'd put it in at night so you can sleep and drown out noise. It's only, I think, 22 decibels, but just having that amount really was helpful for keeping my sanity and keeping my hearing. I'm really glad that I brought lozenges because yelling.
Yeah.
I brought Kleenex with me. I'm a huge crier. I didn't end up using it, but it's something that's small enough that I don't regret having it with me. Same thing, we brought baby wipes with us because
the first 2 days of the concerts. And this is, again, inexplicable to me, but I guess because SoFi Stadium is a football stadium and football games are predominantly male, they did not anticipate an event with a 90% identifying as female audience. And so toilet paper was in short supply.
Yes. So I would say definitely have something you can use as toilet paper in a pinch. And of course, we're all adults here. Just remember, if it's not toilet paper, it doesn't go in the toilet. It goes in the trash. Even those flushable wipes that say they're flushable, they aren't flushable. It should be illegal to say that those are flushable.
A lot of things should be illegal that aren't.
So many things should be illegal. I would say Min Yoongi should be illegal.
Oh, he is. He will be hearing from my lawyer. I'm suing all those motherfuckers.
I also, even though Sam said we both run pretty hot, I did bring a sweater. I do not regret bringing that sweater because I did get cold. I very rarely get cold. So something I would say is just like when you are packing for the airplane, try to leave some space in your bag because you never know what you're going to end up acquiring, whether that be cute little knickknacks or merch. And really, there are some things that we ended up not using, but I don't regret having them because you just never know what's going to happen. So we were lucky enough. We got to see 2 concerts. We got to go 2 days. And I thought that was super beneficial. Sam, what would you say was the most beneficial part of going to 2 concerts instead of just 1?
So I would have not had this perspective if we hadn't done sound check, but keep in mind that if you are short and if you are not at the barricade, there will be a lot of people in between you and the stage. And so while I could see one portion of the stage pretty clearly, when BTS weren't directly in front of us, it was really hard to see them. I think there's also something to be said about concert etiquette. When you have your army bomb, keep it at your shoulder.
Something I did not know. So shout out to Virginia Dwan for yelling at people on Twitter about that. It was like, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
Thank you, Virginia.
And one of the biggest pieces of advice I got from more senior army, older army, before going to the concert was to limit the amount of sections that I filmed, because when you film, you're not as present in the moment. And I think that's something I'm really glad I did. We were exceptions in that regard because people around us, some people filmed the entire concert. And if that is what you want to do, that's cool. But you should also be mindful of whether your phone is raised above your head and if you're blocking people.
Because that was the hard part about being in the floor seats versus when we were up in the stadium the second night. Our first night, we're both pretty short. We're both under 5'4". And the person in front of us had her camera up videotaping the entire concert. And I just don't quite understand it, because I do understand wanting to videotape maybe your favorite. Is it even still videotape anymore? Because we don't use tapes for anything.
I guess. I mean, that's one of those words that's like, is it anachronistic, or it's like, no, I'm not even sure. You can cut this.
I don't know.
But yeah, I think that I get wanting to, something I'm really glad I videoed was the ending statements from each member, because those are unique. Those are something that you'll only see for that show. But I also figure that other people with better cameras and better angles and better understanding of, what do you call it?
Technology?
Yeah, or like composition will be filming. And so I think I would recommend filming a few choice moments, but really being present. And if you do choose to film the entire fucking concert, be aware that you're not the only person at the show and that your camera might block people.
I think that's a really good point. And this is kind of the mentality I had going into it, was I don't take great pictures. Mm-hmm. I don't have the best phone, and I also just don't have that talent. You're going to go on Twitter right after the show and everything is already going to be there. So be honest with yourself about your abilities. If you want to take pictures because you enjoy it, do it. But if you're doing it because you're afraid that if you don't do it now, you'll never see it again, that's not going to happen with BTS. Yeah. We did have sound check.
And so I would say, again, I am glad we did sound check, even though I would say that our tickets the second night, our seats the second night were better from the standpoint that we could see more. I really enjoyed having that, like the exhilaration I felt when I looked up and Kim Suk-jin was ambling onto the stage and like Min Yoongi was there in his beanie and I saw Namjoon and I was close enough to like see his features. That was worth it to me. I would say that if you can't get close, if you can't get in the sections immediately surrounding the stage, then the 100 seats are probably like better, what do you call it, bang for your buck?
In SoFi, yeah. I think the 100s were probably the best because we were kind of right in the middle of A1. You really need to be on the perimeter or freakishly tall to be able to enjoy it. I'm going to be honest. I didn't love having floor seats. I spent most of my time trying to, because I couldn't see what was going on thanks to Camera Girl. So I ended up having to watch the screen. But you are so close to the screen that it's really hard to see. It was just, it ended up being really disappointing for me. I think a really big benefit of seeing two concerts, because we were lucky enough to do that. I think back to the last couple of concerts that we watched that were online that had multiple days, Map of the Soul 1 and Muster. Mm-hmm. Was it Muster?
Yeah.
Suwoo. Okay. Oh, yeah, Suwoo. Both of those times we chose the second day, and both of those times I was like, should have gone with the first one. We missed the good hair. We missed the good set list. We missed something. By going 2 days, there were things that we still didn't get to see because they did such a good job of trying to do something new each of the 4 days, but we still got to see more. Like we got to see Tae dressed up as a Squid Game guard.
Yes. And I will say for me, I think that I really did enjoy Soundcheck. I anticipated not too long before we went that we might be too short to see a lot of stuff, but I really enjoyed being that close. And like the moments when, I will say, I do think BTS do a good job of trying to cover the entire stage.
Oh yeah, that was really
nice. And working
nice
with the crowd. I haven't been to very many concerts. I mostly go to musicals, and I realized that I might not be a concert person. So I think that, but also having tickets the second day allowed me to be like, even if I can't see this today, I'll have an opportunity to see it tomorrow. And so if we had just gone for Soundcheck, which was the original plan, I'd probably feel differently.
And really, Soundcheck itself worked out well for me because where we were on the far edge during Soundcheck, where we were able to spread out a little bit and we could see the stage. It was during the concert itself where I couldn't see anything. And it was really anger making. It was like, why did we spend so much money where I can't see anything? So one of the things that we talked about back when we saw Permission to Dance show in October, the one that was
streamed online.
Streaming, thank you. With the streaming one, we were curious, like, is this concert going to be the same set list? I went into it really kind of hoping that maybe there would be some Map of the Soul stuff.
Yeah.
I think part of it because I love that album.
Oh, it's my favorite album.
And it also makes me sad that they only got to perform this stuff once.
I think one of the reasons I really wanted to see more Map of the Soul is that there was complexity to the music and also to the stage performances in terms of set pieces and choreography that, as much as I do enjoy Dynamite, wasn't so much a part of Permission to Dance. And so I just kind of wanted an epic experience, and it was a little more pared down.
It was. It felt more like a greatest hits. I was surprised that the set list was exactly the same. With the exception of the encore, everything was the same. And I just thought that was interesting because they had 2 months in between. I really thought that they might prepare something different.
Mm-hmm.
We went on the third and fourth days. So we ended up seeing, for the finales, we saw Answer Love Myself, Young Forever, Home, Microcosmos, and then we got to see My Universe, which was exciting, but also I could see it coming from a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, well, those are giant planets over there. But were there any songs that you were disappointed that you didn't get to see?
In his V Live, Yoongi explained why they didn't do any solo songs, which I totally respect. After 2 years, everybody wants to be on stage as much as possible. But I was really hoping for more solo performances. Again, going back to Map of the Soul 7. I also, the one song that I could have realistically seen that I didn't was We Are Bulletproof, The Eternal.
That's the one I was most upset about.
Yeah. I was also really hoping for Magic Shop. And I would have really preferred Magic Shop, or really any song as an alternate to Home, because I don't have a huge connection with that song. We also got to see Spring Day, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We did get to see Spring Day. When I went into this, I also had to be really honest with myself that there is no possible way that they are going to do every song that I want.
Mm-hmm.
Did I really want Dionysus? Yes. Did I know I wasn't going to get it? Yes. Was I still a little disappointed? Yes.
Yeah.
But really, once someone has been performing for 8 years, they're not going to be able to perform every song that you want.
Yeah.
And so trying to be honest with myself about that was really hard. But I was still really sad that one night did get to have We Are Bulletproof, The Eternal, and we didn't. But we did get to watch them cry. And that's all I really wanted in the world.
Yes. I also was honest with myself. Like, I think if I could see any song performed, it would be The Truth Untold.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm never going to see that.
Mm-hmm.
They are not going to bring back, if they bring back any subunit song, that is not going to be one of them. And so I really wanted a longer version of Bepse.
That's what I was really bummed about. It's like, Bepse, they got one hip thrust in there.
Yes.
And the first night I had a terrible view, so I couldn't see who was where. And I didn't know that it was only going to be one part, like literally one hip thrust.
Yes.
I couldn't find Hobie. And that's all I wanted in life, was to find Hobie. And he didn't even get to do the best one, because his best ones are usually later in the song.
Yeah. And I would also say that because we watched the screen so much, even on the second night, some of the graphics were distracting. I would much rather have had them pare down what they were doing on screen, especially during Black Swan and
Fake Love. The hands.
Yes.
That was something that I felt was really unnecessary. We've seen this show already. We saw it streamed. So we know that you don't have to have these things. Why did you add these? They just made it look kitschy.
Yeah, the quality was not, like, maybe do it for one song. The one song where it kind of fit was Idol, where they had, like, Idol on a plane. But you don't need my Windows 95 screensaver feathers, like, on a song like Black Swan, which is as much about the choreography as it is about the music and lyrics.
So we ended up seeing the show 3 ways in total. We saw it from the floor. We saw it from the upper seats, the 200 level. And we also saw the streaming version back in October. Which do you prefer?
I don't know that I have a favorite. I appreciated them all for different reasons. Streaming, you get the best angles. It's super convenient to get yourself to your couch rather than flying your ass to another city and driving to a stadium. But I also, again, I really enjoyed, even though I didn't have the best view, for me, I think being close to the performances and being able to see them really fed whatever I needed out of the concert. So I enjoyed being on the floor. And then I enjoyed having because we were in the 200 levels, but we were dead center in the stadium. So we had a pretty amazing view of the stage. And so I also really enjoyed that overhead perspective. And I actually enjoyed doing fan chants with people and feeling that connection, especially after the pandemic. I would say overall, I've learned that I am not really a concert person. I'm not a loud noises and jostling person. One thing about SoFi Stadium is that I don't know how full-grown men fit in those seats comfortably.
Right?
And so that's something to be aware of. If you are a bigger person, it can be hard to squeeze into these seats.
And honestly, by bigger at this point, I think if you're even bigger than a size 12,
Yes.
it would be uncomfortable, which is ridiculous.
Because this stadium is the biggest per square foot football stadium in America right now.
They just built it.
And it's like, I don't know how a bunch of men would squeeze into it, because I was surrounded by women both nights and our shoulders were pressing up against each other. And I don't mind that with you, but it gets a little uncomfortable with strangers. And so I think that's another thing to prepare for, is to not feel ashamed or bad if you don't fit in these seats. I don't know how anybody would, but also to be aware that you are in really tight quarters. And so you really have to hope for good seatmates and be aware that you will be touching people you don't know.
Whether you like it or not.
And if you're anything like us, you probably are in the not camp.
I think after really thinking about all of it, I would love to see another concert, just because I have more of an idea of what to expect. It was
Yes.
already great seeing it the second night versus the first night, just because I had a better idea of what to expect. I was
Yes.
able to get... we mapped out the entire day thinking, oh, are we going to have to get there at, 12 o'clock, even though they don't open the stadium until 5:30? Are we going to have to get there at 12? We got there at 3:30 or 4 o'clock.
We got there by the
got there at
time we
4.
parked and we found our entry line. It was a little bit after 4. It was starting to get dark.
And, that was more than enough time. So I think that is probably another one of those things where it was the benefit of going to a later show post-pandemic. Well, it's not really post-pandemic. We're still in it.
I think that a lot of people were gunning for the show on the first show on the 27th, because there was this special feeling of seeing them for the first time in 2 years. But if you have a choice where there are a very limited number of shows, I would err on going to the last ones, because we were really lucky. If you've paid attention to anything online, the first day they were still letting in people at 7:15 when the concert started at 7:30, and so
awful.
they just fucking opened the floodgates and let everybody in. And that's not a safe situation, especially in the wake of things like Astroworld. So a tip I would recommend is, if there are a limited number of shows, go to a later one. You'll have a better idea of what to expect, not just from Army, but also from the venue.
So while I do want to go to another concert, now that I have all of these things that I've learned, I think I might actually prefer streaming over in-person concerts. Part of it is because one of the things I really love about music is the music. And I felt like when I was at the stadium, especially when I was on the floor, I couldn't hear very well. And it wasn't about having earplugs or not having earplugs. It was about positions of speakers, and you have no idea where those are going to be. I'm here to hear these songs, especially because the newness of seeing them as people kind of wore off really quickly. And I think that was once I realized I'm not going to actually get any closer to them. So I've seen them let's move on. I'm also super fun to go to museums and zoos with. This is kind of how I am in a museum or a zoo, where it's like, I saw it, let's go.
No, and see, I get a huge kick. I love going to zoos. I am really into keeping it fresh, the experience. I love going to zoos and looking for the animals in the exhibit. I'd rather have to hunt an animal out and be like, oh, there it is. I get a huge kick off of, I think, being somewhere. And so I think for me, the reason I probably enjoyed it was the music was secondary probably to having that experience and being with a bunch of people. I really enjoyed the energy. I got really excited about being somewhere where I could be really passionate about BTS, as much as I've tried to win over my parents outside of Ginger. I don't have a lot of people who I can get really excited about them with. And so I think that all of this is the benefit of hindsight. And I don't know, I think I might have had FOMO if we hadn't had these experiences.
Yes.
But being aware of who you are and also being like, I might not be a concert person. I think a huge part of my need to go to these concerts was probably driven by my social media consumption. I definitely think it would have been hard to see all of these people. I really enjoyed being a part of this excitement for these events. And so now that I've had that, if we don't get tickets for the next world tour, I do think I'll be more okay with that.
I feel the same way. I think you're right. You need to know yourself. Mm-hmm. And I would be willing to try a concert again, but I probably would prefer to be at home, being able to hear great quality, being able to see exactly what they want you to see, because that's the other benefit of seeing something that's streaming is they have a cue sheet and they know who they should be recording and things like that. And you're not going to miss as much. I felt like I missed a lot.
Yeah. So we were there 2 nights, and pretty much every night of the concert, during one of the songs where the lyrics are about a dog, Namjoon would get on his all fours and bark like a dog. I never saw that because I didn't know where to look. And so I really do think that if you saw the concert streaming from home, you got a really great experience because you were able to see what they wanted you to see.
A lot of people talk about having a post-concert depression. I personally didn't. Did you?
No, and I think that we talked about it a bit from the realization that we might not be concert people. I think that having a bit of an imperfect experience and processing that in the moment really helped me not, because I will say I had a fantastic time. It really fulfilled everything I needed it to fulfill. I don't know that I had the transcendent experience that other people had, but I think the trade-off is that I didn't really crash because it was a really great but imperfect experience.
I think it's pretty similar for me because I have had post-concert depression, but I've only had it during streaming concerts. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe it was because this whole in-person aspect wasn't what was ideal for me. But we also made sure to keep ourselves really busy the day after the concert. So that is something I would suggest. Mm-hmm. Even if you don't think you're going to have post-concert depression, if you can have another day that isn't a travel day where you're still in town and just have it pre-booked with, I want to do this and I want to do this and I'm going to do this, you're going to be so busy, you're not going to be able to have that chance to dwell on what you aren't having anymore. Because I think that would be easy to do if you're traveling because you just kind of get lost in your own thoughts. But by staying busy, it was easy to move on. And then by the next day, I was just so exhausted and ready to get out of LA.
Yes, it's really interesting, the whole emotional journey, because I will admit that sometimes I think about a global concert and I feel a little bit of anxiety because so much of, I think I also realized that the lead up to the concerts was so influenced by other people's discussion of it. And when I got there, it was really fully my own experience. And so that is when I had fun and was able to process things a lot more clearly. I took a bit of a social media break after I got home just because I needed some space to not see people speculating about the next world tour and the next thing. And I think that also really helped me process.
And I conversely took a social media break going into it because I didn't want to know exactly what the set list was, because I already knew I wasn't going to get to see everything I wanted to see, and I would have some minor disappointment. Why exacerbate that by spending the first few days before that going, well, now I know for sure they aren't doing Dionysus, and now I'm going to be a sad panda throughout the whole thing.
Yeah. I think, if anything, really focus on your own experience. It's super hard because I think another aspect of the concerts was there was a lot of online discussion of how you should perform as ARMY at these concerts. And as much as you can, I would distance yourself, or like just make sure to do what you want to do and do what makes you comfortable rather than feeling pushed.
I completely agree with that, because I would also say there is no wrong way to be a fan. By being there in the first place, you are being a good fan. The big thing is having a body in that seat. How you choose to use that body is up to you.
Yeah.
So I think something we didn't talk about what we wore.
Yeah. So I think another big pressure issue and like a performative issue is that I saw a lot of people talking about their concert fits, their outfits for the concert. After going 2 days, wear whatever makes you comfortable. I was going to wear flats the second day because it went better with my outfit, and that would have been a mistake. You are going to be on your feet all day and during the concert, so dress comfortably. We saw people in onesies. We saw people dressed up. We saw people BTS bounding as like Koya or
they were BT21 bounding.
BT21 bounding. And so another way that you can just really honor yourself and make sure you have a good time is to wear what makes you comfortable.
Definitely, like what Sam said, choose what you'll be comfortable in. And this might sound really weird, but I had to go into it with the mindset of, I am not meeting BTS. No one here is meeting BTS. I do not need to put on a first date outfit with the hope of impressing BTS, because they will not see me. So taking that pressure off myself, it was like, I can go in a t-shirt and sneakers and I'm going to be comfortable. And you know what? I was.
Yes. I wore a sparkly pink romper the second day, but I also really wanted to do something to dress up a little bit for myself after the pandemic. And I really enjoyed it because I am not a sparkly pink romper person in my day-to-day life.
And it was adorable.
And so I had a lot of fun in that. Do what makes you comfortable. I think that if I could give any advice to my past self, it would be, don't care about knowing all the fan chants. Don't worry about impressing other people. 90% of the people you meet there, and maybe even that's a low number, are there to enjoy BTS and are not going to judge you for what you dress in or how you perform as ARMY.
And they're not going to say it to your face anyway.
Yeah. And so I think the 3 lessons I learned are, don't pack all your shit, because it is a big pain to go digging through your clear plastic bag. Know yourself and be prepared for not having the perfect experience, and just like be in the moment. I think that there were a few moments I filmed that I was then like, you know what? I don't care if the video on this is kind of bad, because I also want to see what's going on.
I think the big final takeaway for me was, keep your expectations at a reasonable level. Because one of the things that I was most excited about was people constantly say how Hobie is even better looking in person. And you know what? He was just as hot in person as he is on screens. He didn't look any different to me. None of them did. And I guess I was hoping or expecting to see a completely different person.
Yes.
But it's like, no, they look just the same. If a big part of why you want to go to a concert is, I need to see them in person because they're different, that's not what my experience was. And God, that just sounds awful. I had fun on this, I swear.
Yes. I think that what Ginger might be trying to say is go in with reasonable expectations. This wasn't the cure-all for my pandemic depression, but I didn't expect it to be. And I think that that really tempered my experience and made me enjoy the parts I enjoyed even more.
We just had a good time overall. And I think a big part of why we had a good time was because Army before us, both for this tour and previous tours, have just been such a wealth of knowledge.
Yes.
Just putting out YouTube videos about how to buy tickets, putting out TikToks, reminding you to take the batteries out of your Army bomb. All of these things that are within this fandom, it's easy to be afraid of the fandom because there are some people who are so loud in their judgment. But overall, people have been so kind and helpful. And just a huge thank you to everyone who shares their knowledge. And I think it's really easy to say, well, I figured this out and I'm going to keep it and hoard it for myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a lot of fun, especially thanks to Army and what they helped us learn. We were there for Jin's moon birthday thing. That was a lot of fun. And listeners, I'm curious, how was this for you? Did you get to see the concert in person? Did you watch the streaming of the final concert? Was it different than the one in October? That's what I'm really curious about, is how did it look different? Send us an email to unkpopularopinionspod@gmail.com. Also, follow me on Twitter at unkpopularpod. There you can get my off-the-cuff unkpopular opinions. Mostly it's thirst-based, but every once in a while I have something profound. And once again, don't forget to keep questioning. We'll see you next time.